In the city, in a small apartment with his mother, lived a boy named Jack. They couldn't afford a lot, but Jack's mother did the best she could and always tried to provide Jack with toys to help nurture his imagination. When it came to toys, Jack wanted things for the bath. Jack loved bath time. He couldn't wait to get in the tub and play with his toy sea creatures. He was always begging his mom to let him take a bath. One day, Jack's mother knocked on the bathroom door and walked in with a surprise in her hands. It was something she had purchased at a yard sale. It was old, dirty, and the paint was badly chipped, but it was the neatest toy Jack had ever seen. It was a small, metal, toy submarine. For all the toy animals Jack had to play with, he never had something like this. It had brass trimming and little glass windows. Jack could just imagine the adventures he would have with it. The submarine floated in the bathtub as Jack pushed it around.
"Dive, dive!"
He'd cry while he imagined himself inside it. And then he opened its little hatch. Blue light beamed out of the toy submarine and bathed the bathroom in a mysterious, beautiful glow. Jack was in awe until he looked down and saw the bathroom was quickly filling up with water. Jack began to call out for his mother. But then, Jack's world began to vanish. The walls of his bathroom began to fade. The towel, the sink, even the bathtub started to disappear. Jack looked up and saw a blue sky, and all around him, the ocean. Jack soon realized he was no longer in his bathtub. Instead, he was standing on the very toy he had been playing with, floating in an endless ocean. Had his toy grown, or had he shrunk? It was no mere toy anymore. It was a real submarine. Jack's excitement soon faded as he came to understand that he was all alone. There was not a boat, no land, not even a seagull. He looked off into the distance, but saw only the infinite ocean and the glowing blue sky above. Jack heard a splash behind him. He turned to look and saw the unmistakable dorsal fin of a shark. Jack became scared. The shark circled his submarine and storm clouds closed in. Before Jack could even think, the monstrous shark leapt right out of the water, jaws open, towards Jack. Jack, already disoriented, lost his balance and fell clumsily through the mysterious submarine's open hatch. Jack fell and dropped through the open hatch into the submarine. He hit the hard wooden floor with a loud thump. Jack quickly got up and gazed out one of the submarine's bubble glass windows to look for the shark. Below the waves, the shark circled the sub, bumping it and scaring Jack. Then the submarine lurched. Something rocked it. Something larger than the shark. Jack, more afraid than ever, shook inside his submarine, hoping the monsters would soon be gone. Everything became still, and Jack slowly got the courage to stand up and look out one of the submarine's windows. There, before him, was a massive tail, the tail of a whale. Jack had seen them in the books his mother had gotten him, but here was one in real life. It was enormous. Jack overcame his fear and poked his head out of the submarine's hatch. It wasn't long before the mighty whale's back surfaced only a few feet from Jack. He stared at the creature in awe, not sure if he should be afraid or not. The whale swam by the tiny submarine, gently rocking it in the water, then dove down under the waves again. Jack climbed back up on top of the submarine for a better look. Jack stood on the submarine and gazed out across the blue water. There was no whale. There was only a cool breeze and the ever-approaching storm clouds. He could hear the water lapping at the sub, but again, he was all alone. Without warning, the whale's enormous head broke through the water's surface, sending a spray of salt water across Jack's face. Jack wiped his eyes and then stared in wonder and fear at the great sea creature towering above him. As the ocean calmed, the huge whale slowly approached Jack in his submarine. The whale rolled on its side to get a better look at Jack.
"What sort of creature are you?"
came a low, thunderous voice. Jack, startled, looked around for where the voice had come from. He looked behind him. He looked in the submarine. Then he realized that the voice had come from the whale. Jack turned to the whale and slowly replied,
I'm not a creature. I'm Jack.
Jack looked around nervously again.
Is the shark gone?
He asked.
I've scared the shark away,
said the whale.
He's big, but not as big as me.
The whale looked curiously at Jack's submarine.
Do all Jacks travel in strange, round, yellow containers?
He asked.
Container?
Jack asked confusedly.
Oh, you mean my submarine?
He exclaimed, bursting with confidence. The whale once again rolled over for a better look at Jack.
What's a submarine?
He asked. Jack laughed.
This is a submarine,
he said, banging on the periscope.
What is it for?
Asked the whale.
What's it for?
Jack was shocked.
Without my submarine, I'd drown. It also lets me go under the water, just like you.
Jack said.
And there's only one Jack. That's me.
Pleased to meet you, Jack. I'm Harrington. Now, if I were you, and that submarine of yours really does what you say it does, I'd suggest you go under the water right now,
Harrington said in a hurried tone and dove under the waves.
Why is that?
Jack had hardly gotten the words out when he turned to see an enormous waterspout headed right for him. The twister approached quickly, and Jack wasted no time hopping through the hatch and closing it. Once inside, Jack looked frantically for some way to control the submarine. Then he noticed the hatch in the floor. He got down on all fours and stared down into the dark underbelly of the submarine. He was afraid to go down, but he could hear the wind from the cyclone getting nearer. Jack slowly climbed down the cold ladder into the submarine's dark belly. Suddenly the lights turned on, followed by a loud bang, and then a low humming noise. It frightened Jack at first, but then he found himself gazing in amazement at the sight before him. There, in the wooden interior of the small submarine, was a series of levers on a panel that Jack had never before seen the likes of. In front of it was a large purple velvet chair, turned as if it were waiting for him to sit down. He heard Harrington's deep voice outside.
Hurry, Jack,
he called. Jack climbed into the soft velvet seat of the submarine and swiveled towards the control panel. He didn't know what to do. He tried pressing some buttons, turning the wheels, and sliding a lever, but nothing seemed to work. Outside, the rain had started to fall. The waves were tossing the little submarine as the waterspout threatened to dash it to pieces. Thunder and lightning crackled across the sky, and Jack shouted at the submarine,
I just want to go under the water!
As if by magic, the submarine's controls started to move on their own. Jack heard a rush of water and what sounded like air being let out of a tire. Jack made his way back up the ladder to see what was happening. To his joy, the submarine was sinking beneath the waves, just as the waterspout was nearly on top of him. The submarine slowly sank beneath the waves, saving Jack from the fury of the cyclone above. The sound of the wind and the rain was gone. Other than the hum of the submarine and the sound of the ocean water gently caressing the outside of it, everything became very peaceful. Jack looked out the sub's windows for Harrington, but he could not see him. He could only see the dark blue void of the ocean laid out before him while the submarine continued to dive. Jack hoped that his new friend had not left him all alone. The silence was suddenly broken by a deep voice.
Are you okay?
Harrington bellowed, frightfully startling poor Jack. Harrington's one large eyeball peered through the tiny submarine's window.
I'm okay.
Said Jack, catching his breath.
See, I told you I could go under the water.
That's wonderful,
said Harrington.
Can your submarine go deeper? Can it go as deep as I can?
I can go as deep as I want,
Jack said smugly.
Then you could go to the bottom of the ocean.
Jack, now realizing what he had just said, responded nervously.
Well, yeah. What I meant was...
There's a great evil below the waves, Jack,
said Harrington.
I've tried to stop it, but I can't dive that far. You and your submarine can dive down and stop it.
I can't do that,
Jack said.
I've got to find a way home.
If you help me defeat the Nerd, I promise I will help you get home.
Harrington bellowed.
What's a naird?
Asked Jack.
The naird lives deep at the bottom of the ocean, where it steals all the water. It has 4 eyes and razor-sharp teeth. I'd go myself, but I'm too old. It's too deep, and the other whales don't believe.
Harrington said frightfully.
You've seen it?
Asked Jack.
No, but the turtle says it's there. It's responsible for this horrible storm.
Ah,
Jack said knowingly. Jack had the sneaky suspicion that the turtle was pulling a fast one on Harrington.
but
Jack thought.
if Harrington can help me get home, I'll play along and show him that this naird is just a silly myth. Storms aren't caused by creatures at the bottom of the ocean stealing the water.
He laughed to himself. Jack climbed back into the belly of the submarine and sat down in the soft velvet seat. To his surprise, the screen in front of him turned on, displaying a view of the ocean ahead. Jack couldn't have been more pleased or excited. He was ready to explore, ready to help his new friend, and ready to go find his way home.
All right,
Jack said.
let's go find this beast and find my way home.
We'll have to talk to the turtle.
Harrington responded.
Lead the way.
Jack said. And with that, the two friends set off to find the turtle and locate the mysterious naird. It wasn't long before the sandy bottom of the ocean rose to meet them and the submarine surfaced. The storm had ended, the sun was setting, and the first glimpses of starlight could be seen. Ahead of them was an island, and on it the turtle, standing and looking like he was expecting them. Jack opened his hatch and gazed out towards the strangest little creature he had ever seen. It was a turtle, all right, but unlike any turtle Jack had ever seen. He stood upright, walked on 2 legs, and wore an unusual pair of wooden glasses. They looked at each other for a while before Jack finally spoke.
You must be the turtle.
Jack said cautiously.
I am.
The turtle said slowly, looking intently at Jack.
I'm Jack.
Jack said.
Harrington the whale brought me here.
The turtle rudely interrupted.
No doubt you've come to save this world.
Jack, a bit confused, replied.
Harrington has told me about the naird.
The naird?
The turtle asked.
Oh, of course. The naird.
He exclaimed, now quite energized.
The naird lives at the bottom of the ocean, stealing the water from this world and sending it back to his. Like you, Jack, he is not of this world. You must let me take the Ceto and stop him.
Jack quickly turned and looked at the back of his sub. He had remembered seeing writing on it when he first played with it, and there it was, the Ceto. Jack turned back to the turtle.
How do you know the name of my submarine?
Asked Jack.
That's not important right now, Jack. Let me come on board, and together we will destroy the naird before it's too late.
Jack looked puzzled. The Ceto was already cramped enough inside with just himself. He didn't think the two of them would fit, and he wasn't about to leave his submarine. Jack also began to fear that the naird might be real. The sun had nearly vanished behind the horizon, and Jack climbed out of the submarine.
There's no room for both of us in here.
Jack said.
Tell me how to destroy the naird, and Harrington and I will see that it's done.
The turtle tried to insist, but Jack stood his ground. The turtle grumbled to himself for a moment, then spoke to Jack.
Very well. But once it's done, you must come back here to my island and celebrate,
he said. Jack thought that seemed fair.
Okay,
Jack said.
tell me how to defeat the naird.
Under the waves, at the bottom of the ocean, exists an object of great size that is not of this world,
said the turtle.
Harrington knows where it is. Go with him and drop it into the mouth of the naird.
But how will I...
Don't worry. When you find it, you'll have no trouble taking it.
Jack thanked the turtle and promised him he would return. He climbed down his ladder, closed the hatch, and hopped down onto the wooden floor. The turtle removed his glasses and watched as Jack and Harrington sailed away. He grumbled to himself, disappointed that it was not he who was aboard the submarine.
Lead the way.
Jack shouted to Harrington as he peered out the window of his submarine at the figure of the turtle growing fainter in the distance. Jack's small heart beat faster, anticipating what he may have to face once this journey neared its end.
Follow me,
Harrington called out, and the two friends headed out to sea once again. Jack and Harrington had traveled for hours without any luck finding the mysterious object the turtle spoke of. It was morning now, and Jack sat on his sub, saddened at the thought he might never make it home. Suddenly, Harrington called out to Jack from under the water.
I found it, Jack.
Jack, excited, jumped up and opened the hatch.
That's great.
He shouted back.
I'm on my way down.
Jack climbed down to the submarine's controls and once again wished for the submarine to dive. The Cedo quickly sunk beneath the waves while Harrington rocketed up from the depths.
It's not too far to the bottom,
he said.
I'll show you.
As before, the submarine willingly did whatever Jack wanted. It followed Harrington all the way to the seafloor. The ocean outside became dark, and the sunlight found it harder and harder to make its way to Jack's submarine. The Cedo began to make strange noises, pinging and popping, creaking and groaning, as the weight from the water above pressed down on the tiny round craft. Out of the darkness, the object slowly came into view. It was an anchor, and it was enormous. The submarine slowly approached it, and Jack wondered how he would be able to pick it up and take it to where the Naird was. No sooner had Jack thought that when he was startled by a large noise and a rumbling from the floor of the submarine. He jumped up, afraid that maybe it had hit bottom, but he soon realized that the noise was something mechanical. It ground on for a little while before stopping. Jack was jolted. It felt like the submarine hit something.
Harrington, what's going on?
Jack called out loudly.
Your submarine has a big hook,
he replied. The sub's motor strained and slowly pulled the anchor from the sandy grip of the ocean floor. The anchor was heavy, and the Cedo struggled hard to get moving, but soon it gained speed and broke through the surface of the water. Jack was quick to open the hatch and yell out for Harrington. The wind and water spray struck his face as he called out.
Come on, Harrington,
he yelled.
Let's go take care of that Naird.
Jack was speeding ahead while he watched Harrington's massive form approach from the other direction. His back broke the surface of the water.
I can't go with you,
he said to Jack. Jack looked down at the massive eye looking up from under the water.
Why not?
He asked.
Because the shark is back. And he's brought friends. Go on without me,
a worried Harrington hollered back at Jack.
I can't,
Jack shouted.
I don't know where to go, and I can't do this alone.
Yes, you can,
Harrington said sternly.
Just continue in the direction you're going. You'll know it when you reach the Naird's location.
Okay,
Jack said nervously.
I'll try.
Jack, worried about his friend, turned back towards the ocean ahead. He did not know if he'd ever see Harrington again, but he knew that stopping the Naird was more important. He focused hard, determined to carry out Harrington's wishes, and the submarine's engines began working harder, speeding the small vessel toward its destiny. The sun rose higher and higher in the sky as Jack's journey wore on. He had traveled a great distance since he left Harrington, and there was no clue in sight as to where the Naird was. The sea was getting rougher, and Jack became scared once more, afraid he was lost, afraid he would never get home. The clue Jack was looking for soon revealed itself. Dead ahead was an enormous whirlpool, a maelstrom. Jack fell to his knees and gripped the Cedo's periscope with all his might while the submarine was pulled in the gaping throat of the ocean. Jack's paralyzing fear was broken by a loud beeping sound that seemed to call his name. Water splashed over the sides of the Cedo while Jack looked down into the submarine's hatch. Coming back to his senses, Jack realized he needed to get inside. Jack carefully lowered himself into the hatch while the submarine picked up speed and headed into the vortex. The salt spray of the ocean stung his face and the sub began to spin. He took one last look towards the throat of the whirlpool and then closed and sealed the hatch. Jack jumped off the ladder and landed on the cold wooden floor. He had always felt secure inside his submarine, but not now. The rush of the water outside was enough to bring a chill to Jack's bones. He didn't know what to expect. He didn't know if the Cedo would survive the wrath of the whirlpool. The submarine spun around in the funnel as Jack watched the ocean sweep by faster and faster with every turn. It didn't take long before the submarine reached the throat of the whirlpool and began its rapid descent towards the bottom of the ocean. Jack climbed down into the control room, but the spinning sub forced him to hang onto the ladder with all his might. The sub spun around and around, faster and faster. Jack waited, fearing the inevitable crash when the Cedo hit bottom. The fierce spinning finally hurled the anchor and the sub out of the swirling vortex and sent them hurtling to the bottom of the ocean. The anchor was too heavy and the sub too weak to stop their fall. The anchor crashed into the ocean floor, followed by an awful sound that shook the Cedo. Jack was thrown from the ladder and he fell to the hard wooden floor, only to have the submarine toss him again as it crashed down into the soft silt and finally came to rest. The Cedo's humming had stopped, and all was quiet. The lights were dim and flickering. The monitor screen showed nothing but static. Jack picked himself up and jumped into the chair. He grabbed the controls and moved them frantically, trying to get the Cedo to respond. Just when all seemed hopeless, a faint whirring sound started. The lights grew brighter, and the Cedo's propeller started to turn. The Cedo's power came back on, and with a mighty lurch, it broke free of the sandy ocean bottom. From its open underbelly appeared a spotlight that lit up the darkness ahead. Jack felt better that they were not stuck, but now he feared the domain of the Naird. Dragging the anchor behind it, the submarine moved forward a moment and then stopped. There, in front of them, was a peculiar sight. The strangest of fish were swimming around some sort of structure and a lever with a plaque that read, "Closed." In front of it was a broken sign.
N-A-I-R-D. Naird.
Jack said out loud, and nearly scared the pants off himself when his voice eerily echoed off the walls. Before Jack could even think, the Cedo extended a long metal arm with a mechanical hand out in front of itself and started to rearrange the broken pieces of sign until it spelled out, "Drain."
Drain?
Jack said to himself.
There's no creature at all. The ocean is disappearing down a drain.
Jack breathed a sigh of relief. Using its mechanical hand, the Cedo pulled mightily on the drain's lever, causing a loud metallic scraping noise. Jack put his hands to his ears and waited for the drain to close. There was a loud thud, followed by many quieter pings, and finally the sound of gurgling water. Soon, everything was quiet. He had done it. The ocean was saved. But there was another sound. The submarine's light turned quickly. There, emerging from the darkness, appeared the very thing that Jack had been fearing might just be real. And it was. It was the Naird. Its jelly-like body housed lifeless eyes, and as it opened its mouth, glistening green slime stretched from razor-sharp tooth to razor-sharp tooth. Jack, his mouth hanging open, just stared in fear. The Naird was bigger and scarier than he had ever imagined, and he was paralyzed in the moment, unable to think or act. The control panel started beeping loudly and woke Jack up out of his trance. In a moment, the submarine reacted to Jack's wish to get away from the Naird. It shot up towards the surface, followed by the Naird in wild, wriggling pursuit. The Cedo worked hard, producing a grand cacophony of noises, struggling to stay ahead of the Naird's gaping mouth, which was inching nearer and nearer with every turn of the propeller.
The anchor!
Jack finally remembered in a moment of clarity. Down on the control panel, a red light started to blink. Jack knew right away it was the button to open the hooks and release the anchor. He reached out with his trembling hand and pressed it over and over, but nothing happened. The anchor would not release. One of the hooks had been damaged in the crash on the ocean floor. The Cedo strained to open them, to release the anchor into the Naird's mouth, but it was no use. His heart beating intensely, Jack plunked back down in the seat. All was lost. He waited for the inevitable. But it was a sudden crash that came instead. Jack looked up at the monitor. It was Harrington. His mighty jaws smashed through the metal arm of the hook, shattering it into pieces. The anchor, now free, dropped like a stone. It dropped, of course, into the gaping mouth of the Naird, who stopped his pursuit. His eyes widened and his gelatinous body heaved as he tried to cough the anchor out, but it was no use. It was caught. In one last desperate attempt, the Naird reached out and quickly grabbed Harrington with its mighty tentacles. Harrington thrashed about, but the Naird, coughing and choking, was still too strong. The two creatures, locked and struggled, plummeted into the darkness of the deep. Jack could do nothing but look helplessly on. It wasn't long after Jack lost sight of Harrington that the Cedo broke through the surface of the water. He made his way up from the control room and into the conning tower. The sunlight streamed in through the windows and fell on Jack's face. It was warm, but Jack wasn't interested. Jack opened the hatch and climbed up. The sun was shining, the water was calm, and the air was warm, but Jack didn't care. All Jack could think about was Harrington. Harrington had saved his life, and now he was gone. Jack also realized there was no one left to help him find his way home. Jack gazed into the water for a while and cried. Jack climbed back inside. While he mourned, the little submarine turned itself around and headed back towards the Turtles' Island, just as Jack had promised. The sky was blue and the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day, but Jack sat in the Cedo. He was too sad to come out. The turtle, awoken from his nap by the sputtering noise of the Cedo making its way through the water, got up and watched the submarine approach his little island. He was thrilled that Jack had returned and couldn't wait to get himself on the tiny vessel, without Jack. Jack stopped the submarine near the shore of the island, climbed out, and sat down on the edge. He gazed into the water.
Hello, Jack,
The turtle called out, hoping to gain Jack's trust.
Did you find the Naird?
He asked anxiously.
Yes.
Jack said sadly.
Wonderful,
said the turtle.
Come closer so that I may join you in celebration.
Harrington's gone,
Jack said.
I did just like you said. The anchor choked the Naird, but as he fell, he grabbed Harrington and dragged him down.
Jack could barely hold back the tears.
But it wasn't the Naird stealing the water,
Jack said.
It was a big drain.
Jack looked down again.
I just want to go home now. So no celebrating for me.
With that, the turtle flew into a rage.
Enough!
He shouted.
I've been here too long. Now you're going to let me onto that sub so I can go home.
His fist shook with anger.
I did it. I opened the drain. But it was an accident. I built my own Cedo after finding the book. I traveled here, but my Cedo was flawed. It blew up, opening the drain and mutating the sea life around it.
Jack stood up. He couldn't believe his ears. The turtle was responsible? And now he wanted Jack's submarine to carry him back to his own world.
What book?
Asked Jack. The turtle, slowly walking into the water, replied,
The book that I found, buried in the sand. It had plans and an operator's manual, everything.
The turtle continued out towards the submarine.
I followed the directions the best I could,
said the turtle.
But I was forced to make do with the materials that I had. When I arrived, the power source had overloaded. It exploded, opening the drain, marooning me here. Luckily, the waters drained quickly, exposing this small island. I knew you and the Cedo would come. Now I must go home!
At that moment, the turtle's rampage was silenced by the large breach of a whale.
Jack!
Came Harrington's familiar voice.
Harrington?
Jack turned to see his friend splash back down into the water, sending an enormous spray of salt water high into the air. But as Jack turned, he lost his footing on the slippery metal surface of the sub and fell backwards off of the Cedo. As he fell, he heard a tremendous whoosh sound, and he was engulfed in a dazzling bright blue light. Then his world went black, and all was quiet. Jack slowly opened his eyes. He wearily blinked several times to clear his vision, and soon he recognized where he was. With tired eyes, he looked around at his own bathroom. He was back. He soon realized that he had had the power to come home all along by just jumping off the submarine. Jack's mother came running and threw open the door.
Jack, are you okay?
She desperately asked. Jack looked over and smiled.
I'm okay, Mom.
What are you doing on the floor?
His mom asked.
Dirty and still wearing your same underwear. Now stop playing around. Get back in that tub and get cleaned up. It's way past bedtime.
Jack got back in the tub and washed up like his mother requested. When he was done, he excitedly grabbed his submarine and opened the hatch. But much to Jack's dismay, the glow of blue light was not there. He opened and closed it several times. Nothing happened. Jack, saddened, put the submarine down, dried off, and got ready for bed. His lamp set on low and moonlight streaming through the window, Jack laid in bed, wondering about Harrington and the turtle. Jack started to wonder if he had dreamt it all. Maybe he had bumped his head in the bathtub. Jack thought for a long time until the noise of the city quieted down and he finally fell asleep. Suddenly, Jack sat straight up in bed.
What is that?
He thought. He could hear a faint beeping and see a blue glow coming from outside his room. The beeping sounded just like the Cedo.
What if I'm dreaming?
Jack wondered. Jack wondered long and hard about that, wondered if he should get up, and then he made up his mind. Jack jumped out of bed, ran out of his door and down the hallway to the bathroom. A glowing blue light illuminated the outline of the door. Jack was thrilled and scared at the same time. Jack pushed open the door. Bright blue light filled the bathroom and poured out into the hallway. With much fear, Jack slowly shifted his gaze upwards, and then Jack smiled. He couldn't wait for the next adventure.